Hey, before we dive into the content, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our rock solid content.
The first one was Louisa. First of all, what a little dynamite.
Yep.
Man, she's just, you talk about someone who's, just alive, full of life force, kicking, and, she's probably going to live to be 150. Just what a breath. And she doesn't have the physical sort of presence that you would think of a phenomenal speaker, but she stands on stage, and the essence of that being that is inhabiting that odd little body is just nothing but life and living and stuff. A couple things about it that I saw. Her speech was very impactful, but there were just a couple notes on it. To me, there were elements of the speech that she presented, but then she didn't set up and create completely. She said, we all have a misconception based on social media, movies, and TV, but she never supported that. It was just a statement she put in. Okay? So if she's going to say that, then she needs to make that part of the speech and drive that point home so we see. So she sees this lady on the side of the road that needs her tire changed, and she gets out, and it's an actually sort of I get a machete type, a Hispanic guy tattooed, and it's like, and stuff. And I never get why is she prejudiced against him. I never get the clarity in the message on why she's prejudiced, and I never get a callback to a movie. Now, if she'd said, he's like the machete guy in the movies, now I have a callback to the movie, right? And I can see why she's got a prejudice because it reminds her of what she saw on TV. So that was, I love the judo.
Yeah.
Mexican judo. You don't know this, you don't know that. But that was the biggest thing I saw with the consistency of the story, where it was the clarity came down a logical path. Like Aaron had that you were following with the story. You weren't Ed was talking about the open loops. You weren't left with any open loops in it. Okay, but phenomenal presentation, good message, great delivery. You talk about the essence of authenticity. She was there talking to us. There was nobody else there talking to us.
First impressions. Did everyone know where she was going with that? I kind of knew what her message was. First impressions, and then she meets a guy on the side of the road, and he looks a certain way. I know where she's going with it. So now don't get me wrong, she's a Spitfire. She owned it, she came in second, she deserved to be up there.
Now, real quickly, Darren, you say that, my brain goes back to 1995. My opening line in my speech, A Second Chance, was a well-known phrase. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I said that phrase is fairly common. So when I hear first impression, my brain goes in a particular direction almost automatically. Continue.
It's the nonverbals, isn't it? Question?
Yeah. So
I knew where she was going from the title, from first impression, and then she met somebody strange. But what threw me off was where she went with it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know where she was going after that. Because when she put on the hat and came up with the hammer and the other thing, I went, what is she? Is she going to attack him? And then it threw me. So I felt that was a good way to go with the story.
Yeah, no,
I didn't know the ending.
And the story was good, and I didn't know where she was going, but I knew what her message was going to be. So here's my thought, whether it's Toastmaster speech or professional speech, your title should get us to want to hear the speech. We should get curious, and first impressions doesn't make me curious. An unforgettable story. I know it's going to be an unforgettable story, but I'm okay with that. Do you see what I mean? So just don't give away your message. Like Kwan's he did give us a message, but I wasn't sure what the message was. That's good. You see the difference? Yes.
Then what would you have titled Louisa's speech?
Many options. Could be, I'd take time to figure that out, but it could be, but that's not what I saw. It could be
But level playing field.
level playing field.
That was a repeated through.
By the side of the road.
By the side of the road.
By the side of the road.
Lessons from a tire iron.
Well, press had changed by a tire in
Yeah,
013,
yeah.
so that'll be too close.
Too close to presses, but does that help you?
It does. It just
We-
basically it took it away from the actual.
Yeah.
I got one for you.
I'm sorry.
I got one for you. Good idea for a title. Ouch. That was Darren's title. You said, what is that all about? If she could have said Mexican judo, I'd have been intrigued.
Yeah.
Bye, Lance.
See you, Lance.
Yeah, if she could have said Mexican judo. I'm like, Mexican judo? What's that about? And so, yes, Belsley.
I had a feeling that it was not for a global audience. You need to have a lot of local knowledge about Texas and Hispanic things to even relate to her story and message. That was my impression.
I think she tried to set that up. Well, in Texas, we do this, we have this. She's trying to give people a visual as sort of a foundation that would help us to understand what it was like in that particular environment. I see a hand here.
Yeah, related to the comments made, there were many local jokes, right? So I'd like to hear your perspectives on how you should do about local jokes. And American audience will laughing hilariously, but I didn't get the jokes related to Texas or Mexico because I don't have them out there. If you're speaking to the international audience, what should we do about it?
You know, it's funny. Anyone here who has ever heard me coach contestants, even in a university, on our core calls, one of the points I try to make is it's important to think globally. It's easy to have colloquialisms, phrases that we know that we use almost automatically, but will my international audience really understand these terms? And if we don't always consider that carefully, we run the risk of having people wonder what in the world are we talking about. Several years ago, we had a young man in the finals, and he talked about a bad relationship with his father, but he used the American sport of baseball as the anchor for his speech. And he said, we would go to the sandlot and play sandlot baseball with my friends every weekend. And it was Mark Houck years ago. Did a good speech. He didn't win, but it's a good speech. And being Jamaican, I met with my Jamaican friends for lunch. And one of them, who's been a toastie for a long time, asked me one question. Just, Mark, that guy Mark, what's a sandlot? Does anyone here not know what a sandlot is? The sandlot is the open lot beside your house where the kids go and play ball. There's no house there, it's dirt, and they make a playing field, right? We had them in Jamaica. We play soccer on those sandlots, but we never called them sandlots. So what happened was my Jamaican friend got stuck trying to figure out what a sandlot was while he was going through with his presentation, delivering a powerful message about his failed relationship with his father. She was hung up on, what's a sandlot? The same applies when we use jargon we use in work every day, acronyms. We say them all the time in our environment. We go to give a speech, and one fellow at one of our meetings says, my wife and I were together, and I went AFib, and all of a sudden I said, stop. You went AFib. Show of hands. Does anyone here not understand the term went AFib? And exactly. But he was so used to saying it in his environment, it was natural for him. So the caution is real. It's valid. Will my Chinese audience, will my Kuwaiti audience, will my East African audience understand? It's a good question to ask when you're preparing a speech. Yes, sir.
I actually wanted to, because in my speech, that wedding ceremony, they aren't necessarily called bridesmaids and groomsmen.
Right.
I called them that for it to make sense to my Western audience.
Right.
So it's just keeping in mind that if you have an international audience, what is the best way that you can not be, for lack of a better word, disrespectful to the culture that you're talking about, but also make it make sense for the people, the majority of the people who aren't part of that culture.
Well
So if
said.
you're going to use an outside reference, if you choose to, which I love your call on that, if you do choose to use an acronym or something we might not know, you've got to immediately follow it with a brief explanation. I learned from Russell Brunson, a famous marketer. He always uses, it's kind of like. As soon as he says the term, he follows it up with, it's kind of like, and bridges it to something we do know. So the example he uses, it's like ketones. So he's talking about ketones in the diet, and he said, it's kind of like having 1,000 little motivational speakers inside your body. So it's kind of like, he gives us that frame of reference so we all know, in his market, everyone knows what a motivational speaker is. In other markets, that might not work. So you got to think, is the audience you're speaking to, would they get that reference? And if you're going to use the term, immediately follow it with an explanation. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing your audience.
Going back to Louisa's speech, I was wondering if I wasn't listening closely enough because I didn't understand when she described the person with the flat tire, how in the world she could have thought it was a woman.
Long hair.
Oh, is that all? Yeah.
Long hair on the back.
Long hair, curvy body. Oh, okay, see, I wasn't listening closely.
Long hair on the back.
One thing that I was not a fan of in hers was, and this is for anybody. Oh, looks like I somehow deleted my notes. Ouch. Okay, is she said, then I learned a life lesson, and then told us a story about learning a life lesson. Again, don't, what's that term? Telegraph
Yes.
what you're about to do. Or if this was the lesson that changed your life, don't tell us this is the lesson that changed my life. Don't do that, because now you just sound like a motivational speaker. Just don't do it. Just get into the story and make the beginning of the story compelling so we want to lean in. Yes?
As a young Toastmaster, my club just chartered last year, it's clear to me that the story is so centered and crucial. And I'm wondering, and it needs to tie to personal experience. I'm wondering where the boundaries are in terms of creativity and embellishment. Let me give you an example. One of the speakers here who delivered a workshop started off, very professional speaker, talking about what happened to him on the way to the workshop. And then he moved into a joke that I recognized, and I thought it was funny. Everybody laughed, and he got us in a good mood. Where do you draw the line between sharing personal experiences and embroidering and being creative and just flat out
Stealing material.
Plagiarizing?
Plagiarizing.
It's okay, you can say it.
the word that came to mind, we're adults, flat out lying.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was on
That
the
works.
way to this workshop today. You're not going to believe what happened to me. And then I
That's cliche, first of all.
It happens. It happens.
It happens, but
I gave him an okay. I was okay. You know what I said? He's warming up the audience.
All right, I'll let Darren go first because he's my boss. I work for him, so I'll be
So
quiet.
we like to teach you the principles. You decide if you adopt them or not. I am not a fan of doing that because you're out of integrity. And yeah, the audience will give you a little grace. But if you are doing this as a professional and you get 90 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever you get, why would you ever use something like that that's either cliche, you know, the statement's cliche, unless one time that it actually did happen on the way to the workshop. If you said recently or something like that, I'm okay with it. But it's a lie if you said it happened. So I tend to be legalistic. I came from the stand-up comedy world where if you did a line from anyone, every club owner knew, and you were blackballed and your career was pretty much over in that city. Because all the comedians knew, all the club owners would knew, that's a thief. Like, you're done. You can't get over that. So I grew up with that word. So I tend to be a little more than maybe, you know, I came to Toastmasters and I see people doing Tony Robbins' story. I'm like, and I would get really mad and upset because I'm like, because what you're doing is, for people who do that, you're learning how to steal and then make it look okay. I would rather see you work harder to find your own material, your own content that warms up the audience. Even a joke. There were a couple jokes in this year's contest that weren't actually original. If you're crediting somebody else, great. If you're not crediting it, You only have 45 minutes and you have 50 years in your life. Find something original.
That's basically it. I am of the opinion that our lives are full and rich enough with experiences. We don't need to take anyone else's. I'm curious, show of hands, were you in my Thursday session? Anybody? Thank you. Every story I told is 100% true. Nothing was embellished. Nothing had to be embellished. Because if you learn the art of telling the stories from your life well, that's what the audience will respond to. And I really believe we have enough experiences. You could have an experience on your way to convention that if you look at it closely and craft it well, that could be good enough to warm the audience up. As Darren says, if you are a professional, you have ways to get the audience warmed up. You don't need to embellish or borrow or steal. Our lives are rich and full enough, which is why we tell all our STU members, maintain a master story file. Because the simplest of experiences could be the nugget or the nucleus of a great signature story. We have enough in our own lives. We don't need chicken soup for the soul. We really don't.
Yeah, for those of you who just joined Stage Time, you will learn, you'll hear it over and over again, start a story file. Start a story file. Word document, if you're an app person, use Evernote. Ed Tate uses Evernote, but you got to start collecting stories. If you owned a chair company, your inventory is chairs. If you owned a rug company, your inventory is rugs. As a speaker, trainer, consultant, your inventory is stories. So just make it a new habit to start collecting them. And in going back to the original point, I live in Las Vegas. There's a show there called Legends. And legends are the legends, Michael Jackson, Tina Turner, Britney Spears, and there's all these actors playing those roles. Okay, so they're doing it, it's a good show. They're very talented, but they're doing out someone else's songs. One of my friends met one of the actors in that show and said that they could barely afford groceries because of what they're getting paid to be someone else. The legends were multimillionaires. We want to train you. Look, it's going to be a little tougher. It's going to take a little longer. But you have it in you. And our whole passion and goal is to help you find your stories, your way, your voice. So it may be a little slower than using other people's stories, but it'll be so much more solid. You'll stand out, you'll have more authenticity, and your audience will connect to you much more quickly.
And when you have authenticity, careful, you will
Don't delete.
have Darren's got up his phone and his notes there, and he's pushing buttons that says, do you want to delete the note? No, don't delete the note. You lost one that way already.
I just got it back.
Authenticity and credibility go hand in hand. Maureen.
I have a question for each of you on that. Don't you think that if the audience knows that's a cliched joke or a story they've heard, doesn't it plant a seed, even subconsciously, what else are you lying to me
They
about?
question everything. If there's one that's not yours, they may still like you, they may still pay you, they may still refer you. But in the back of their head, what else did they steal? It's just natural.
Yeah, did you ever feel with Aaron and Quan, wow, that's something I've heard before? No, that was original.
Maureen.
I thought one of Louisa.
By the way, Maureen is also a coach and a book author of 4 books. And if you're thinking about writing a book and you want help or coaching, talk to Maureen. She's amazing.
And also a regular contributor to Toastmaster magazine every 2 months, right? For her, it's not rocket science, though.
She's a former NASA engineer.
Stop now.
We love you, Maureen. You know that.
Oh, did you have a question?
And she's a great keynote.
Yes. And she's been on the final stage herself.
And
Say
what a
thank
mom.
you. Say
she is
thank
such
you.
a good mom.
Yes. Just say thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Your comment.
Is it my turn to talk?
Yes.
Sorry, time's up. Okay, next question.
One of my favorite jokes that Louisa had was 2 Mexicans walk out of a bar.
It could happen. It could happen.
And when it was funny, it was hilarious, and then she went on to explain how sometimes you get kicked out, dragged out. I thought, did she push the limit of racial humor too far, or is it because
She's Mexican, it's acceptable.
Was it self-deprecating?
But here's the challenge. That's not an original joke.
Yeah.
Right.
Raise your hand if you've heard that or a version of that.
Okay.
Okay? Sorry, Luisa, I love you.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's one of the jokes that I'm talking about.
Okay.
So here's a question: would she have fixed it if she said a popular joke you may have heard, and then say the joke, or end the joke by saying not?
I would say it after. For something like that, I would give credit. That's an old joke, but it works.
Yeah.
Boom. Now she's not, because when you're up on the big stage, like, look, if you earn that right, it's showtime. It's time for us to hear you and quote you. You don't hear a lot of speakers quoting other speakers at that level. I quoted Brian Tracy, but Brian Tracy
Context, yeah.
was the catalyst. Here's how I live my life. The Brian Tracy quote, then here's how I live my life. So if it's a catalyst, it then becomes part of my story, but I'm not trying to use that quote to back up what I'm saying because I don't believe in myself. Does that make sense? Did you have something, Aaron? Or okay. Yes.
Have you ever come across, and I'll just use the Louisa one as an example, who may have created what they perceive to be their own joke because they truly hadn't heard it somewhere themselves? How can you avoid that situation?
Jump on Google. Take you 2 seconds.
Yep.
If it's found on Google, chances are it's not original.
It's fine.
But it's a great question.
Like myself,
It's a great question.
exploration research is not a forte. So
Yeah, and I honestly, if she actually wrote that joke, and somebody came up, if somebody gives you feedback, I heard that joke before, then you got to go research it. It's
Right.
your speech, it's your integrity. So, and if it's something close, it's a call, but you got to be careful. Just know that people are judging you. Yes.
But didn't the guy tell the joke? Didn't the guy with the car?
He did,
He tell
yes.
her the joke?
Still her speech.
Yeah.
We're assuming that she wrote that speech word for word from her life and her experience.
Yeah, so
It's still a character, even if he said it to her.
So he stole the joke. She could have said, well, he stole that joke. No, just kidding. But I took it as, most of us who retell jokes, I don't remember jokes very well, they're from somebody else, we have no idea. So she's talking to this guy, it may have been the first time she heard it, it's the first time a lot of people heard it, but it wasn't like, if it was from her real experience, he really said that joke. So I didn't feel it was inauthentic because that was her story, retelling the story that she heard.
There's one more dimension before Sarah speaks, and I often say this: rather than tell a joke, find the humor in your life and use that instead.
Yeah.
I don't insert a joke, uncover humor in the situation, and let that work for it. That's why I love Jeannie Robertson so much. She's 74 years old, been doing it for 50 years, and she packs houses everywhere. She just hit like 5 million views on YouTube.
Jeannie.
Jeanne. Jeannie Robertson. And she tells stories about her husband, left brain. I know her personally. And she said to me, Mark, uncover the humor and use that. Don't be telling jokes.
Yeah, it should be in your story. Craig Valentine calls it detour-free humor. So even though, that was a character, and maybe he did say that to her, but that doesn't make it okay. You've got to do some research yourself if that's a funny joke or whatever, and if it was original to that guy, if you're not sure, Google it. You only get 7 minutes. It's not that much to research.
Spend more time researching your life. Raise your
Yeah.
hand if you have kids. Raise your hand
Stories.
if you were a kid. You got material.
Sarah?
You had a question.
Just okay, so should we reiterate what the guy was telling to her? But I've also heard the judo joke. I'm from Texas.
Yep.
That's one that's been.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
That's another one.
Well, she calls it Mexican judo.
Mexican judo.
Which is for that's a concept that Mexicans can use for how we defend ourselves, right? If I were to say "yeah man, no problem," I can't own it. I'm Jamaican, I can say it. I didn't coin it, but we Jamaicans always say "yeah man, no problem man." It's a Jamaican thing.
And think about this. If it's for the speech contest, you're competing against two amazing speakers. If I'm a judge and I think it's not original, I give you one less point than Aaron. Aaron wins. Like, why would you even risk it? If you're a professional, and you're not, like, you're a professional, like, period. If you're a professional, you got to do the work, and you got your own stories. It's really easy to steal, and that's why a lot of people do. If you want to be a $200 speaker for the rest of your career, go for it. You can.
Depends on the country.
What's that?
Depends on the country. In Nigeria, $200 goes a
Okay. Nice. I know, but if I...
Hey, I got the email. I got the email on that. I got the email.
Yes.
You've been talking about somebody breaking the rules. I felt Louisa broke every rule that we've been taught in Toastmasters and public speaking for all my experience. And it worked for her. And it was funny, it was entertaining, and it was poignant.
And why did she get away with it?
I don't know why.
She's authentic.
Yes.
There's not a phony bone in her body. And I've talked to Aaron and Quan and Louisa off stage, and what struck me after the contest is they were the same people in the interviews and in the hallways as they were on the stage, and that's why they're champions.
And that's why she pulled off those jokes, and it was rare, because usually if you try a joke like that, it's going to come off, and the audience is going to sense it. But she just owned it. She was her, so we loved her. And that's how she got away with it. But that's risky.
Yeah.
Aaron.
Actually, a story to support that. When we were getting ready for the World Championship, we're just sitting there and talking, and she makes a joke about ice. She said, "Oh yeah, down in Texas, we can't say we have ice because ice is the
Yeah. Border Patrol. Yeah.
So yeah, it was totally authentic to her.
That's her.
One last thought on your comment. You said Louisa broke every rule in Toastmasters, and that kind of made me cringe a little bit. It's because it suggests that we run the risk as Toastmasters of letting the rules rule. I was flown to India and Sri Lanka in 2008 for a conference and a public event in Colombo, Sri Lanka. 500 people in an auditorium. I'm in my best suit. I deliver my talk. When I was through, a Toastmaster, whenever I see her, we laugh about this, she's not here this year, approached me deeply concerned that during my presentation, Mark Brown, world champion, I made the horrific mistake of putting my hand in my pocket. That is not the Toastmasters way.
Oh my gosh.
But I spent my time talking to young people ages 13 through 18. I don't wear a suit to a school. I wear sneakers or slacks and a regular shirt. I don't want to appear to be an authority figure. Our last president, President Obama, would go to town halls, take his jacket off, roll his sleeves up, and talk to the people. He didn't abide by the rules of wearing a certain suit with a pin on it. And she was upset because I put my hand in my pocket. If God forbid I said, or I'd have gotten marks. You had 3 in 45 minutes, Mark. It sounds funny, but if you look, what was great about Kwang, Louisa, and Aaron, they were natural. They had conversations with us. They weren't delivering speeches. They were having this conversation, sharing their experience with us, and we have to be careful about the formality that we abide by as Toastmasters, because the truth is, you get to the real world, most speakers now, TEDx and major conferences, they got jeans, shirt, a jacket, no tie. I'm the weird one wearing a bow tie all the while, but that's my style. So breaking all the rules may not be a bad thing if you're going to be authentic. So think about that going forward.
Lance told a story yesterday of doing a workshop at a Toastmasters conference, similar story, Mark, and it was an hour and a half long. Toastmaster came up to him afterwards, first thing out of his mouth, "You said 3 times. Lance, being Lance, said, "How long did I speak?" "About 81 minutes. 1 every 27 minutes. Not bad."
So if you see the value in world-class feedback like that, you will love Stage Time University. If you're an experienced presenter, sometimes we're wondering, what's that little technique or that idea that I've been doing this for a while, but what do I need? We've designed Stage Time so you get world-class processes that you can take with you every time you take the stage, and we give you an opportunity to get world-class feedback on our live weekly calls. So check out Stage Time University, dive right in, become a member of Stage Time University, where we help you become unforgettable.